I'm Frank Gerace, WDEL News. More news at the bottom of the hour, breaking developments as they happen, or anytime online at WDEL.com. Right now, more of the Rick Jensen Show, right here on 1150 AM WDEL.
To the delight of those on the left and the right and the center and everyone else who doesn't have a financial interest in Tony DeLuca, Senator DeLuca has a challenger. To the confusion, frustration to the far extreme left, it's our Tea Party friend, Evan Queitsch. How are you doing, man?
Good. How you doing, Rick?
I know. It's like, I even posted on Delaware Liberal, you know, you may not agree with everything Evan says, but can you get over the fact that he's a Tea Party conservative because he wants transparency, he wants openness, his door will always be open to everybody. He's not going to keep you out because he doesn't like you. I mean, I'll cut right to the chase. If Planned Parenthood wants to talk to you down there at Legislative Hall, will you run away from them, or is your door open?
No, my door's open. They can come and talk to me. It doesn't mean they're going to necessarily get everything they want, but they can come and talk to me, and I'll listen objectively to their opinion and see what we can do.
Let's see. Here's the Tony DeLuca test. If you ever get in a position of some authority, like, let's say, President Pro Tem, will you put up special security doors to keep the ugly, filthy, rabble public out of the office?
Actually, one of the things I want to do is take that door down.
Now, you don't get that office, you know. If you win the election, you don't get in there.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I want to make sure that we open up Dover and make it more accessible for people. I want people to be able to see inside the committee meetings, inside the General Assembly meetings, online through podcasting to see what we're doing. I think people ought to be invited to come down and spend a day in Dover and see what their government's doing. I think it's a shame that we have it so locked up and security doors and all kinds of crazy things going on down there, especially security doors that nobody else in the legislature even knew about until the contractor showed up to put the door in.
I've taken my daughter and some other kids as well down to Legislative Hall many, many times to go in and see the process and meet people.
The times that I've been down there have been crazy times with lots of folks down there. A lot of them are wearing suits and are usually lobbyists of some sort or another, which is fine. Everybody has their reason to be there. But I'd like to see more average citizens walking through those doors on a regular basis and holding their representatives and their senators accountable.
I actually do. I mean, you know, I broadcast 2 or 3 times, usually it's 3 times during the legislative session. And as we head into the second half of this session, I'll be there I think the first week of January. They take a break until Easter. I'll come back when they really start doing their work after Easter. And then at the end of session. Why are you chuckling at me?
Because I think it's funny that we have a 6-month part-time legislature that actually only works for about 3.5 months.
Well, but if you ask these people, and I think it's true, I mean, they do some work throughout the year. Your phone rings a lot, whether, you know, it's someone's plumbing breaks or something like that, but there might also be something really big and serious.
That's the servant part of public servant.
Exactly. You don't just have a phone in a closet. You know, it rings and you have an answering machine. You never have to listen to it or whatever.
Right.
And there are those who serve on committees, and some of those committees, the finance committees and others, actually do meet throughout the year. So for some people, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it can be for those leadership positions, but they also get paid handsomely for those leadership positions as well.
Let's talk about pay.
As we know, they're making, $50,000 a year down there.
Some 50, 60, yeah.
I mean, that's a decent full-time salary for a blue-collar worker in Newcastle County. So I imagine that you know, when they say they need a full-time salary, there's a lot of people scratching their head going, "You already got one." Okay.
What about benefits? You know, after you retire, retirement pensions and things like that. I mean, would you actually get in there and make a move to get rid of that sort of thing for lawmakers?
I'm an advocate of the old school politics, which is, you know, you go in there and you do a couple terms and you get out. You're not there for life. You're not a retirement politician or a retiring politician. You're there simply to do your duty and your service to your community. I would like to see term limits instituted down there. I'd like to see people do 2 terms and get out.
Because 2 in the Senate, 3 in the House, or something like that, or what?
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you switch offices or what have you, that's sort of up to you. But I'm not a fan of the people that go down there and they stay down there for 20 years and they make a career out of it, because those are the ones that get corrupted by the lobbyists and the special interest groups. Those are the ones that become unresponsive to the people. As we know, in the 11th Senate District, we don't ever see either of our 26th District Representative or our 11th District Senator. We never see either one of them. And I think the reason for that is they've been there too long.
You paid some pretty good change for a telephone poll.
Yeah.
And you polled people about Tony DeLuca. I was stunned to see these numbers, that a huge number of people just don't even know the guy.
Well, out of 5,000 respondents.
5,000?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
5,
a pretty
000.
expensive poll, dude.
5,000 respondents. 54% of them had no idea whether they were supportive of him or opposed him. They didn't know if they were happy with his job performance or not so happy with their job performance. And most of them, a good 90% of, or 80-some% of them, couldn't figure out whether or not they were going to even vote for him.
Okay. You're running against him, so the easy question here is, why should they be against him?
Well, look, I mean, I think he's facing a primary right now within his own party, so he's got problems not that stretch across party lines, left and right. I think ethically, he's got some issues. He's of course, you talked about the security door. He's also a double dipper. He works for both the executive and legislative branches, which is something that I'm completely against. And it doesn't matter if it's Senator DeLuca or somebody on the opposite side of the aisle. If you're working in two branches of government, you're wrong, plain and simple. And as a reform candidate, as somebody who's looking to make government more open and accountable, we have to start taking care of that situation all around, wherever it exists, and get that out of the way. No more double dipping. No more two taxpayer-funded paychecks. No more hands in both sides of the taxpayer's pocket. And I think that's probably one of the most egregious things. Not to mention that he sort of bullies his way around down there. He gets what he wants, and he's the author of legislation that I think is abhorrent. And one of the ones that I often cite is the bill that renamed renewable energy.
Yeah.
To include natural gas, which, I mean, whether you believe in global warming or you don't, whether you think we should get off of fossil fuels or you don't, you can't have it both ways.
You can't say natural gas is renewable. Right. My joke about that is, well, in that case, then the oil, the 10W30 you put in your car, is even more renewable. At least you can pour that in the ground.
And get them from the same place.
Basically, but natural gas, wait, get back in the ground. Hey, you're renewable. Get back in here. All right. So that plus blue water wind.
Yes.
Here we don't know, as you point out on your blog at deconservative.blogspot.com, we don't know how many millions of dollars in Delaware taxpayer money has been wasted in this blue water wind debacle.
Yeah, we still don't know. And as you pointed out on your radio show, we probably won't know until sometime next year. When next year, we still don't know.
Yeah.
But at some point next year, we'll probably find out what the cost was. We do know there was a cost. There was some money spent for some of the 6 executives that were working on the Blue Water Wind project. We know that there was some money, put out for some of the setup and things going into this wind farm that never actually got built.
Yeah.
I know you had Delmarva Power on saying that no taxpayer or ratepayer money was spent on energy generation. That's all well and good.
But Glenn Moore also did say they had to spend a lot of money on a lot of the research and the lawyers,
like that, right?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So and the thing with that is that was once again government going beyond its means, government picking winners and losers and deciding what industries and businesses should succeed and what should fail. And what you have is a model that we've seen with Cylinder, we've seen with Blue Water Wind, Fisker to some extent, although that's still to be played out, and potentially with Bloom, as you point out often, we are venture capitalists now, thanks to government, whether we like it or not. And it's government picking winners and losers and often failing at that. I think what's better is to look at the private market and say, where are the smart people, the smart investors putting their money? Are they putting it into, Fisker, or are they putting it into GM and Nissan and these other companies that are going to hit markets sooner?
No, I don't think so. I think the deep pockets and the smart money is putting them into Democrats. They get something out of it.
Well,
you bundle a few $1 million and you get a few $100 million out of it. That's good investment. As Charlie Copeland wrote back last February that we had mentioned too. Keith Stoltz investing in a few Democrats, and he gets his multi-million-dollar deal. I know you're laughing about that, but we really believe that, and it's unfortunately it's being played out.
It is.
We saw it with a couple of Republicans. We saw it with Duke Cunningham. You've got these military contractors putting their money into Duke Cunningham, and they get something out of it. The difference is the Democrats and the Republicans joined right in and said, fine, this guy's dirty, let's get him out. The problem we have here is that you've got dirty Democrats, but the Democrats aren't willing to push him out like the Republicans are more willing to try to push out Ted Stevens, successfully push out Duke Cunningham. And so we're going to need more Republicans, especially starting here in Delaware in our state legislature, to start pushing some of these guys out. And then hopefully more Republicans in Washington, D.C. as well, because the Democrats aren't doing what they should be doing. I think another example of this, I know I'm kind of ranting here, but it's one of the things that really bothers me about this country right now. This presumption Democrats are for the people. Yeah, they're for the people if you're a multimillionaire, if you run a hedge fund. And a prime example here, Democrats, liberals especially, get the willies when you say the name George Bush. But the fact is, one of his campaign contributors, Enron, the company there, Ken Lay and these other guys, they were crooks. And he told the Department of Justice, get them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he told Congress, never again will someone who does this kind of criminal activity in business occupy a corner office. Obama, with Goldman Sachs and this grand recession and the mortgage collapse, does the opposite.
Puts him in his administration.
In his administration and elsewhere in the government. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it just seems to me that if you're going to have the party of opposition making sure that we have as few criminals as possible in the government, we're going to have to get more Republicans out there in D.C., and we need to get more Republicans here in Delaware as well.
Well, it all starts at the local level, Rick,
yeah, because
that's something I've been
that's how we get
people
there.
Because we look at it at our national landscape, and there's a lot of things going on the national level that folks here in Delaware really can't control as a small state. But what we can control is getting our state back under control, and that starts with the local races, your rep races, your senate races, your county races. Get involved, get out there, and people who really want to reform government, we really want to make it open, accessible to the people again, get involved. Get out there and get started.
That's the big Tea Party message. Evan Queitsch running for state senate in the 11th district. 478 WDEL 478-9335. He wants to talk about education here in Delaware. Marie's on the phone, and we're going to get to that phone call and that conversation. But first, your WDEL Delaware AccuWeather forecast.
1150 a.m. WDEL.
In studio, Evan Queitsch, Rick Jensen Show, running for state senate, 11th district. I want to get to Marie. You want to talk about education here in Delaware, problems and how to fix it. I'm going to go right to the phone, though, with Marie. Marie, you're on WDEL.
Yes, I am.
Good. You have a question or comment?
This is my first time, so I'm a little nervous.
Be gentle. You have first-time caller. Well, here's what we do. We have actually a first-time caller salute for you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, listen closely. It's very serious, okay?
Right.
Kind of loosen folks up when they haven't called before. Yeah, we were talking about education and graduation rates here in Delaware. I'll tell you, the official numbers are in the 70s, but the real numbers are around 65% of kids graduating. And right now, they've actually reconfigured how they determine that. So all around the country, we see the real graduation rates falling in every state because now they're not using their political numbers, they're using real numbers. We have a lot of other problems going on here, too. Marie, are you a teacher?
I'm a retired teacher. I've been out of the system only a few years, and I have some inside information that I would like to share that I think not everyone knows.
Okay, good. What's that?
Number one, there are two things that I would like to share. One is the idea of when I first started teaching, our own ideas were very welcomed and actually encouraged. Towards the end, or when I was getting closer to retirement, we would meet in committees. We would pour our hearts out, coming up with terrific ideas of new and innovative ways to do things. And then all of a sudden, we'd get this edict from the top, a new mandate. And what was the explanation for this? We came up with all these wonderful ideas during our committee time, and then we're going to do it a different way. And this happened over and over again. And case in point, I recently talked to, at a holiday party, one of my teacher friends, and she said, Marie, guess what happened? And she said, remember the girl that replaced you when you retired? She said she's only been there 3 years, and she recommended a student to go to her. And the teacher, my teacher friend, has been a teacher of the year in Newcastle County. And she said the sad thing is she's getting out because it's so discouraging. And the second thing, in that, I'd like to, like I say, when I first started, I felt guilty for taking a paycheck because I loved what I did so much. And when we left, at the top, one of the banners that was filled out, I almost felt like I was in the communist bloc in Russia because it says, "We are family." That was how we were introduced to our year of school. And I'm thinking, well, don't we decide in America if we're a family or not? And usually if you have a good running staff, you don't have to tell them that they are family. And then the second point I wanted to make was I'm very concerned about parents when I first started teaching, and you can tell I was at the lower grade level, but many of the children had many of their parents come in. You had to be very organized in how you coordinated parent volunteers. But I found that as I began to go to the latter part of my years, teachers would say, "Well, where are the parent volunteers? Where's the help?" And that always added to your program. And we found that towards the latter part, last few years here, they were not welcome in the school. In many of the schools, I'm not saying.
What do you mean not welcome? Really? I mean, what are some examples?
They were really not welcome. They said, "Well, you can do this, or you can do," they'll give you a little menial job, but they pretty much kept the parents out of the classroom. At the same token, I realize there are many other factors that come into play when I say that. Many parents were not working when I first. Mothers were, and some dads were not working when I started teaching. I mean, the other parent was working, so, the opposite one could come in and help. But I did, and there were complaints made to the principal and up above that, hey, parents are not being allowed to come in. They're not feeling welcome.
I want to hear more about that after the news, Marie.
Welcome back. It's the Rick Jensen Show.
Rick has become extremely dangerous, stacking sustained winds of 160 miles an hour. Rick is take a turn to the right.
On 1150 AM WDEL.
In studio, Evan Queitsch. Next state senator for the 11th District? I'm hoping so.
Me too.
I mean, I really am. I love the idea of getting somebody in there who is going to be open, transparent, unafraid of open debate, and responsible government.
And that's what we stand for.
Yeah.
That's what that's what we want to do. We want to accomplish when we go down there, and hopefully, God willing, we will.
Let's get back to Marie. Marie is a retired school teacher. We're talking about education in Delaware, and is telling a story which is far too common. It used to be that ideas from teachers in the classroom, in the front lines, if you will, used to be respected. Now they get mandates from D.C. Everything you do is mandated by D.C. As we saw, Brandywine Hundred is being threatened with having funds restricted because they weren't going to have all these meetings that Race to the Top, I call Slog to the Bottom, was demanding. I'm hearing some other stories from teachers, but first, I want to get to Marie, who is talking about parents not being welcome in schools. She said, I wonder if there's any other teachers who recognize this to be true as well. It's 478-9335. In what ways are parents being made to feel like they're not welcome in their kids' schools, Marie?
Well, basically, if they want to come in or make an appointment to help, they say you can sign up for, well, it's different from school to school, but in my experience, and this is with more than one principal, in the last few years, not in the early years, and even through the 90s was okay, but it was after about 2000 is when I noticed when increasingly they were not as welcome. And it's, okay, leave your things at the door or leave your things at the office, whatever you want to tell, we'll send the message down. Oh, no, you can't go down and visit. It'd be distracting, that kind of thing. And it used to be you would have parents sign up at the beginning of the year to help in the classroom. And it wasn't that they make a big deal about it. It's just that they so discouraged it, or just, oh, yeah, you can help. And, well, what day and what time? Just like it's a one-time thing. And it wasn't that way, years ago. And I think that's what enhanced and made teaching so rich. And, I mean, you didn't mind working night, weekend, whatever it took to do the job. But when you're mandated from the top down, you lose that enthusiasm for your job. And it just breaks my heart to hear that this teacher that replaced me, only 3 years in, and highly recommended by another excellent teacher who was a teacher of the year, or has been more than one time, to tell me that she's leaving the field because she's so discouraged. And that just it's really heartbreaking, and I just don't want to see that. And I was just, I just wanted to pass along. I have heard also, I just wanted to say hi to Evan. I've heard him speak several times, and I think he's going to be just excellent. And he's what we need. We need refreshing change in the state legislature. And but anyway, this parentalrights.org, there's some cases in Virginia where the parents, they want to go in and they want to see these sex ed classes that are going on, and they will not even let them come in. They won't let the parents come in and view what their kids are learning. And I said, well, why do you have to hide? I say, why do you have to hide something? If it's so good, why do you have to hide it? And so I just don't want to see that happen. I just think Delaware, I've seen, some really wonderful things happen, but I see these other trends, and I find them disturbing. However, I am encouraged to see someone like Evan rise to the top here, and I step forward and put his name in the hat. And it's not easy. He has a family, and yet he's willing to step out there and
go ahead and run against a guy like Tony DeLuca. Maria, appreciate the call. It's 478 WDEL, 478-9335, Education Delaware. Let's hear from Evan after WDEL Traffic Watch on the 9s, 339. Here's Mark Tatasciore. Mark?
Thank you, Rick.
11:50 a.m. WDEL. Evan Queitsch, one of many visits to the studio, I hope. He's running for State Senate against Tony DeLuca.
Yes.
In fact, we had many conversations beforehand, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to just tell my listeners right now. I was asking, would you please run? And, when people say people have been asking me to run, usually it's bogus. People really have been asking Evan to run, and before he did, it was off the air, on the phone, and I had listened to what he had to say, and I said, dude, would you run? He says, I got a couple of kids. I got a job. I got a family. I'd like to, and my wife and I have to prayerfully consider this, and they did. And I know it's going to be busy. I know it's going to be crazy, but I am actually really glad you are. So I'm coming right out and saying, here's a guy who was asked by many people to run, and I'm one of them.
I appreciate that. I came home one day, and we were talking about it, and I told her, I don't think I'm going to do it. She said, you better do it. That's your job. That's what you were made to do. That's what you're here for. So go do it.
Seriously.
Go do it. And, we have 4 kids. So,
4.
4 kids, and two of them are younger, 3 and 16 months. So, young kids. But
maybe that's why she wants you out of the house.
She was
just no more kids. Get them away from me.
Very adamant that I take this on. So we are doing it as a family. I say we all the time, and what I mean by that is myself, my 2 oldest boys, and my whole family, my youngest kids, and my wife too. We're all in this together, and all my supporters and campaign team and all that. They're all good friends, and they're all close family and things like that. So
it can be a good learning experience for the kids, unless the opposition gets ugly, and it's very possible there could be some name calling. Might say, like your son's right here, they might say things about your dad that's not true, and ugly and mean. Some people just never grow up, and that'll happen. Just like in school. Okay, let's get to education.
Yeah.
The problem is you're teaching to the test, the high stakes. There's kids have bad bellies on a Sunday night. It's horrible. You ask the teachers about race to the top, and they're saying, why? Why are you taking me out of class for these 90-minute meetings when you're talking about formats as opposed to meetings about how to teach kids. I'm hearing this from teachers who are saying that these meetings are not helping them to teach kids.
Well, we just had Marie on, and she brought up a perfect example of one of the things that came up last year, actually, down in Dover. They were talking last year about a parental notification system for issues like sexual education or violence or books you're going to read, things like that. And they just wanted a notification system that would actually do a robocall out to parents and say, these are the subjects that we're going to be covering in the class this year.
Or even a written syllabus.
Or a written syllabus to them. And there was a big fight over it. DSEA, the teachers union, is down there saying it's going to cost millions and millions of dollars to send out robocalls, which, having done a robocall for, myself, I can tell you is not millions and millions of dollars, to send it out. So I don't think it's burdensome. And I think those are things that are happening, not just in Virginia and Oregon and other places that, as Marie was talking about, but right here in Delaware, they're happening. And I think there's ways that the legislature can start to work with parents and start to work with the education.
What can you do with parents and as a state senator that would actually make it easier in the classroom for teachers?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that we really need to do from both a structural standpoint and from a conceptual standpoint. First thing I would do is we have 19 school districts in this little tiny state of Delaware. And I think we can consolidate that. I think if you look back at the consolidation plans that have been out in the past, you can save hundreds of millions of dollars just by consolidating the school districts. And I think the last one I looked at was consolidating them down to 8 or 9 school districts. And I would go even further than that and say, let's consolidate it to 4 school districts.
Democrat Lieutenant Governor Matt Dehn went to a meeting of Democrat DSEA. I call him Big Education. And when he said Governor Markell would like to start on this program, they yelled at him and then they laughed at him. And that was the end of that. What makes you think as a Republican you can get out there and change that?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense to the constituents. I think it makes a lot of sense to the parents. I think when you really look at it in terms of not only the overall cost savings, but the way you structure a school district consolidation and you set up feeder zones so that you keep the school boards in place and still allow parents to have access to their schools and still have access to the funds for their schools. When you set that up conceptually and you lay that architecture out there so that parents will have actually more direct control of the schools and not have to worry so much about the administrative costs.
But the problem is you have so much federal funding that it's the federal government that has control of the schools. It seems that way.
In some areas, not in all of them. A lot of your school districts, the Colonial, for instance, the Brandywine School District, they don't get as much as Red Clay or the Christina School District because of their titles, Title I students, things like that. So there are ways that you can structure it so that the tax revenues and the federal funding and the state funding go where it's necessary, where they're needed, and you still have the ability for the parents to control their local schools.
What else?
I think once you consolidate them and you localize the schools and you get the parents back involved in them as far as, the hiring and firing of teachers. There's been a lot of things going on at the Christina School District level with teachers who the parents absolutely love and want to keep. And I think it's a shame that the school board hasn't been able to do that because of some of the rules and regulations set forth. So I think if you can localize that school control, you can really bring it back.
Are you really localizing more when you have fewer districts, or are you localizing more when you have more districts?
Well, when you consolidate the school districts, what you would want to do is consolidate your big spending items like your construction, your transportation, your administrative costs, things like that. But you would still keep local control for HR resources and things like that. So I think you do allow the local school boards more control because then they can get more involved with the nuts and bolts of school operation as opposed to funding for construction and things like that.
Okay, what about the funding? I mean, we have these referendums for funding. It's become sometimes contentious. I like it because it compels people to get involved.
Well, in my district, the 11th district, we operate within the Christina School District, and one thing that most people don't know is the Christina School District spends almost $16,000 per student per year. That's enough to afford a private school tuition, and the graduation rate is roughly 69-70% for that cost.
Right.
And interestingly, if you extrapolate that out and you look at the actual school district budget, the Christina School District, one of 5 or 6 in Newcastle County, spends more in 1 year than the entire Newcastle County operating budget.
Evan Queitsch running for State Senate, 11th District. 3:49 right now. We'll get to your call, Seal, and yours as well. If you got a question, you want to talk about this, 478-WDEL, 478-9335. First, here's Mark Tatasciore with Traffic Watch on the 9s.
Thank you, Rick. 95 southbound still doing well as you head out of the city of Wilmington.
1150 AM, WDEL and WDEL.com.
Evan Queitsch in studio. Rick Jensen Show, WDEL. We're talking about education as he is running for State Senate, 11th District, against Tony DeLuca. As I mentioned before, Delaware Liberal.net. It's pretty funny because they're like, yeah, someone's running, Tea Party guy. Oh, no, what do we do? But there are many, many moderate Democrats and I guess just somewhat left of center on Delaware Liberal is saying, yeah, you know what? Actually, what he's saying isn't so bad. Don't be so scared of this guy.
Yeah.
He's talking about more transparency, more openness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let's get to Seal at 478-9335. You're on with Evan Queitsch. Seal?
Yeah. Yes. Hi, Evan. Seal, how are you?
Hi, Seal. How you doing?
I'm good. 15 years ago, I fought this fight up in New York in a federal lawsuit. And we were requesting the same thing of an opt-out of controversial programs. And we kind of put a spin on it. We said, well, if you're not going to give us an opt-out, because they really gave us a hard time, and the school board rubber-stamped everything that the superintendent had in mind, we asked for, well, why don't you just have an opt-in? If these programs are so good, then just get those children that want to opt into the program. Well, the school board and the superintendent decided that they would give us an opt-out, but they would put our children on the punishment bench in the hallway until that class was over. So we objected to the punishment bench, so then they said, well, then you have to take children off the school grounds. So it came to a point, I mean, they're very difficult to work with. It came to a point, thank God I wasn't working. I had to pick up my boys, and in front of the class I announced, hey, let's go get an ice cream down the street. The teacher was furious. The children were all like, well, why do we have to go through this class? Why can't we go for an ice cream?
Yeah.
And I'm like, talk to your parents. You know, we're opting out. So we got our way on that. It was a bit of a, a struggle for us. But then you also mentioned about $16,000 per student in Delaware. We were paying $16,000 also per student up in New York. And when I pulled them out finally out of the public schools and put them in the parochial school, the principal spoke to me and she said, this is an outrage because it is $16,000 per student over in the public schools. We're only working on a $6,000 budget, and we are able to educate your child far better.
Yeah, it's interesting because, when I looked at it, I realized that I could send both of my kids to Tall Oaks Classical School, which has a 96% graduation rate for both of my children for the price of one at a public school. So I'm wondering why it is that we're spending so much money, and I think it's a lot of it's the government bureaucracy, and I think we can get rid of a lot of that along the way. I also think it would be a great idea to give parents the opportunity to spend the money for their kids' education wherever they decide to spend it through a voucher system.
Yeah, I've always thought it was a good idea, too. Seal, appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Thank you. It makes sense. Have the money, follow the child.
That's right.
But in the real world, not going to happen, especially here in Delaware, where you have big education being one of the most powerful lobbying groups, and they're so involved in our government as well. So
they certainly are.
So that's not realistic.
A lot of that is having legislators willing to take on the lobbying groups. And as you said before about having an open ear, my ear is open. But remember this: I'm beholden to no one.
Yeah,
I'm beholden to the people who elect me to office, not DSCA, not big education as you call them. And I think you're right. The administrators union, they're not out there for all the teachers. There's a lot of bills that I think are a lot of things that we can do that would help the teachers.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Legislation. What sort of legislation would you like to either enact or get rid of that would actually be helpful for teachers?
Well, I think, first of all, as we talked about, consolidating the school districts and allowing the parents to get back involved in the classroom, day-to-day activities, allowing parents an opportunity to opt in and opt out and talk to the teachers and discuss things. We also just talked about vouchers. I think vouchers are a perfect opportunity for the parents to decide where their kids get educated and where they don't. You know what? Let the public schools compete with the private sector schools. You have, again, but these are the forces against you. I mean, the DSCA paid, I don't know how many thousands of dollars to a PR/marketing firm in D.C. to come up with a program of destruction of the charter schools and how to use the school teachers to market negative
campaign messages, basically, against charter schools, where the kids would be taking those messages home to the parents, and it would be just all sorts of one-liners and propaganda to propagandize against charter schools. It's pretty terrible thing, actually.
The way we combat that, though, Rick, is we look at the results. Look at the results of charter schools. Look at the results of private schools.
Well, you've had some good and some bad. You've had some strong, some weak.
Right. You also see the public schools, where their average graduation rate around 70%, where private and charter schools, their average graduation rate is around 90%.
As we wrap up, I'm going to jump ahead and say also with you in the state Senate, it would be nice to have someone there who would be very, very supportive of these Republican bills to open up the money bills, like the bond bill and the budget, at least a few weeks before it's actually passed, so people can see how the state legislature intends to spend the money, as opposed to keeping it quiet and secret like Tony DeLuca prefers right now.
That's right.
Evan Queitsch, running for state Senate here on the Rick Jensen Show on WDEL.